Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Kuf Pei Base. We're working through the halachas of Bensching alakos and Birchas Hamazon. So we're up to Gimel. Tzarich shelo yehi pogum. The case that you use for benching should not be pogum. That means shem shos memenu pogamo. That if you've got a cup of wine and you've sipped from it, that makes it pogum, and you cannot use that for benching alakos. But if you spill a bit out, you haven't drunk from it. Instead, you just spilled a bit out, either l'seich yoda into your hand, or kli into a kli. Ein bekach klum. That does not make it pogum. Even if you drink, it's not a cup of wine, it's not a becher, but it's actually the jug or something. That makes it pogum. If you drink from the barrel, that doesn't make the whole barrel pogum. Even if it's water, which if you drank from like a glass of water and you want to use that water to dilute the wine, even that is no good for koshel bracha. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Yud Zayin. Once it's pogum, once you've sipped from it, you can no longer make a bracha on it, on olav Birchas Hamazon. In other words, that's not a good koshel bracha for benching alakos. And the same is true for Kiddush v'Havdalah. Even a little sip, that could render it pogum, that you can no longer use it for a mitzvah purpose. But if you spill the bit into your hand, says the Mishnah Berurah, not only that, if you just sort of dip your finger into it, the davka imshosum imenu befiv pogma. It's davka if you drink from it, it's a problem. He says in the footnote in number 13, if you drink vimshosa is a kona, like if you drink through a straw, he says shenech shavadin kapogam alidechen. That could also render it pogam. Interesting. Okay, Yutes ein bekach klum. But if you drank from the chovis of a big barrel, then is that what's going on there? Sorry, no. If you spill it out into a kli or into your hand, that's not the same. It's dafka drinking from it that makes it pogum. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yotes ein bekach klum for who shaloi shofach el ma'at be'inyan shadayin shem mole olav. You obviously only spill a little bit of the wine, otherwise it's not full enough. Or you pour it into another smaller becher, that would be ein bekach krum, that would be okay. Or you throw like some bread into it, that will sort of raise the level of the water of the wine. It doesn't need to be fully full with wine. It shouldn't just be choser. It's interesting. The Dayan's yard site's coming up, so I think of him often. But on Shabbos, sometimes when you make Kiddush Friday night, whenever Shabbos morning as well, you fill the kos, and people they fill it right to the top because they say al kos yain molis. I remember one time I had this chus sitting next to him for the simcha on a Friday night. My brother made a simcha, and he was making Kiddush for everyone, so I poured him the thing, and I poured all the way to the top. He goes, no, you don't need to do that. So he said, tell me, the dime would always, he says, is that how you pour your tea? Would you have a cup of tea mamish to the top? Kos yain means it's full, it doesn't need to be to the top. So I said, it's fine. He says, Havdalah is different, it should spill over, whatever. So he said, you should know, Dayan told me, he once ate Baruch Shlomo Zalman on one Friday night many decades ago, and it was the same thing, that he would pour for Shlomo Zalman, and he poured it mamish to the top, and Shlomo Zalman said, no, it doesn't need to be the top. He says, al kos yain mole. No, how do you have your cup of tea, Dayan Andre? So it was the same. So anyway, so it doesn't need to be that. Hare pogum. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Chav, Rotzolema kol ma sheyesh bezu hachovis, or sheshavcha achach lekelim acherim. Ein lahakbid, that if you drink it from the barrel itself, ein lahakbid, v'yesh machmir afazen. There are some people who say that even if you drink from the barrel itself, they should be machmir. V'yesh loch shlidvrem, should be lechatchila, shelo laniach lishtos afilu mipi barze mechavis gedola. Psula, limzoig, psulim limzoig, that if you drink from some water, then that makes the water pogum that even makes that you can't dilute the wine anymore. Lechera milo amrinan kama bottle. He says, why didn't you say it's come by bottle? When you drink a little bit of the water and then you pour the water in, that water is bottle anyway, so what's the problem? So ve'efsha demairi shahayayin chai te'i efsha lishtos b'li mezigo lekach le bottle. Maybe we're talking about pouring into water which is raw, which cannot be drunk in that state, and therefore it's not mevatel the water. Maybe he says in Mishnah Berurah. Okay, Dalet. Im hoyu kaisos hamasukin, pegumin. So if the kosas, imagine that people were sitting around the table, everyone's got their own kos of wine. So if those kosos were of the people sitting around, the mesubin, a pogum, you can pour from the kos bracha into them, and that renders them no longer pogum. You don't even need to do that. For Simon Reish Ayin Aleph, says Mishnah Berurah, Pirush. Each person has their own kais. So each one drinks from their own kais. And if their kais is pogum because they've already drunk from it, in other words, I've got the kais of Birchas Hamazon, and then I can make Birchas Hamazon, and then I make a brach on the kais, and then each one can have from their own thing, for their own Birchas Hamazon, and I can pour, even though they've drunk a little bit from their wine, if I pour a little bit of the kosher bracha into theirs, that makes it no longer pogum. But, important, in 15 he says, Kodim sheyishteh, haynu la'ach shebirch bervagofen, in other words, I can't drink from it and then pour. Once I drink from it, I make that kos pogum. So, and it's important for kiddush generally. When you've got guests or whatever it is, you've got your kiddush and you make kiddush to give them before you drink from it. Yeah. Once you've drunk from it, then it's pogum, and you're giving them from pogum. So, or you spill some out into another becher, then you drink, and then you give them from that. But don't give them from the kos that you've drunk from. In terms of hygiene and
one's wife.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. That's okay. That's the yeah. If just the guy making Birchas Hamazon is holding the kais, af she'az hamasubim bal karcham tamim mikais pogum achas sheshosahu leichbas on that we're not worried about. Given the mitchila who are kais shalem. It's all considered one. We're not worried about it because we're only worried about the guy making Birchas Hamazon. We're not worried about the people around the table. Okay, good. Hey. So you've got some leftover wine from Kiddush or here from Birchas Hamazon, and you want to pour it back into the bottle. That's okay. Mishum to come a bottle because it's been mevatel the wine that you've poured back. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Dafka b'di'evet. That's not ideal. What should you also ask us, Cain? What do we do? What we do is if you've got a leftover, you've got a becher of wine, and you've taken the bit for Kiddush, you add a bit from the bottle and then you pour it back. Don't just pour it back. I mean, but the it works, but you should add a bit to the becher and then pour it back. And then you pour it back to the bottle. The kama bottle. So long as there's more wine in the bottle than there is that you've poured back. Okay, Vov. One of the ways to be mesakin, to fix a kos pogum, is to add a bit of wine from the bottle. Even by pouring a bit of water in it, that is also mesakin. It says in the Mishnah Berurah, the Indian pogum ain't a apostle mamish. Yain pogum is not that it's apostle the wine, it's sort of slightly blemished. Because you drank a little bit from it. And therefore adding a bit of wine to it is mesakin it. Or indeed water, mayim, that's only true if the wine is very strong. she'ena miskalkel they have meziga, otherwise it becomes too diluted and it's no good. But lav dafka b'mayim, duadim b'sham mashkin, it can be other liquids as well. Miskin v'hu shelo yu mayim atzon pegum, so long as the water is not itself pogum, like we said above, shelo shosim mehem, that no one has drunk from this water. De'ilav hochi ef shelesakin mehem, ve'yesh omrim degam mayim nifkomim b'shtir, because otherwise it's you can't be misakin something which is pogum, something which is pogum. Zayin. B'shas hadchag mevorchin al kois pogum. If push comes to shove, then you're what?
How can you suck it on Shabbos anyway?
It's not proper tikkun in this mitzvah. Yeah, it's not proper tikkun. Yeah, says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Beis b'shas hadchag she'en lekoisach. If there's nothing else there, the only thing you've got is a becher of wine that you've drunk from. Then you can actually use it. Ve'en lebemal lesakin hakoizeh, and you can't be misakin. V'kamash malon dahav amin and mutav levorich. Below kois klar. I might have thought better to bench without a kois. Kamash malon the Indian pogum who rak lechatchila im yochel izoy bezeh v'lo leikuva. Kosu achronim the cheshetzarich levorich al kois pogum im yesh le kois kotan mamachzik reviz yishbech me'agad l'soicha. A good eitzah is pour from your becher, which is pogum, into a smaller becher. That also somewhat renders it no longer pogum. Yesh misakim apagim alidei nesinas peripas, by putting some bread in. V'hatur docha min agzeh. The Torah doesn't like this. The lo mahani zel lepagim, it doesn't help. The main pogum rak shein amolev. The only problem is that it's just not full enough. Mash yesh v'akos yesh shir avius, and there is a shir avius in the kos. Then lekul alma mahani hamilu afila de'apas. You can put a bit of challah in, and that will raise the level of the water, of the liquid, of the wine, and that helps. So dafka b'chatzich achas, dafka one piece of bread, the harba yesh by mishum mius, but if you put lots of crumbs in it, then it's mois, it's considered disgusting. That kriva no, it should be nice. V'gam adraba tzorich ladiach chos mipripas. You should actually clean it because of the crumbs. So just to summarize and just to mention one ha'ara, that we've said over here, benching ala kos. What is the story? So we saw three shittas in Sif Aleph. We saw the first shitta, the Mechaber says birchas hamazon ta'on kos, and you should be mechad. You should even for a yochid. Then we saw the third opinion says dafka if it's three people. Yesh omrim dafka el shleisha, and then yesh omrim she'ein natuna kos klal afilu shleisha. So three opinions, 1, 3, and even 3 don't need it. And the Ramah says that mitzvah namufcha levarach ala kos. Now, Gidon pointed out to me at the back, I missed this yesterday, that there's a very important note on 32 about halacha lemaisa nowadays. Do we bench ala kos or not? Many people don't seem to be bench ala kos, even on Shabbos, even with 3. And here Paul even mentions your 10, right? So here we go. If you look at page 32, at the very bottom of the page, it says hemshech mi omid pevov. Let's just read this for a minute. The minhag seems to be that people are not so noyeg to bench ala kos. What is the reason for this? Because wine is expensive. This is the Orach HaShulchan writing in 19th century Eastern Europe. But if wine is plentiful and it's available and cheap, of a prat kashiyesh zimun, says the Orach HaShulchan, it's appropriate for every Yorei Hashem to do it when there's a session, especially when there's zimun, to bench ala kos. Certainly people who drink lavishly during their meals, beer and other things, fine. Now if you look to the next paragraph, Oid Kos Orach HaShulchan, Sh'af Sheminag Ha'olam Shelevarach Berachas Hamazon ala kos, Mikol Mokom Yesh Madaktim Lasot Kein B'Shabbos V'Yom Tovim. Says the Orach HaShulchan, okay, you may not be particular to do it during the week, but maybe on Shabbos and Yom Tov you should. Now, if you then look, I'll call upon him, Omnom, second line of the next page, top of page 33, Omnom, B'Shem HaChazon Ish V'Agon Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, the stipler, Huva is brought, Shelo Hayu Nagim Levarach ala kos. The stipler and the Chazon Ish were not particular to bench ala kos, V'Afilu B'Shabbos, after Shabbos, so not on Shabbos, not even when they had a minyan zimun of 3. However, Shabbos says Ramosha, true, there is a mile to bench ala kos with 3 people. There's no obligation. Even if you've got 10 people, there's no chiyuv to do it. Says Ramosha, fascinating. For hundreds of years, for hundreds of years, Klal Yisrael didn't bench ala kos because wine wasn't so prevalent. We've sort of stopped this minhag to do it. and va'af atza, and even now, shayayin motzu lo yishtana minhag machmas kama timim. The minhag hasn't really stopped. V'hamavarich ala kais v'richas hamazon yisne shehu eisakein bli neder over din hanoga teva. And if a person decides to do it, very nice, but should do it as a hanoga teva, bli neder, etc. So there's plenty of limud zchus not to do it. The style of the Chazon Ish, Moshe, etc. The minhag seems to have been. That's perhaps explaining why it's less prevalent to do it. Okay.